So there I was, lying in bed on this super weird night where everything just felt off, you know? The fan was doing its best to cool down our tiny apartment, but man, it was still so stuffy. I kept tossing and turning, my brain totally refusing to shut up. Jake, my straight roommate, or so I thought, was crashed out across the room. At least that's what I figured from his steady breathing. Look, we'd been roomies for like 6 months, and everything was pretty chill at first. But lately, things got kinda complicated. Something was definitely up between us, and I could feel we were about to hit some kind of turning point. On paper, we were just your average guys sharing a place. Splitting bills, sharing groceries, hanging out whenever. Jake was actually pretty cool, knew when to give space, but also down to grab a beer and watch stupid action flicks together. But here's the thing, lately I couldn't get him out of my head. Not just normal roommate stuff, but like, really thinking about him. My heart would do this weird flutter thing whenever he was around, and I'd get super aware of every time we'd bump into each other in our narrow hallway. There was this crazy tension in the air, something we both knew was there but weren't talking about. And Jake? He was just one of those guys who made everything look so easy. Total natural charm without being a jerk about it. Always knew exactly what to say to make you laugh. Plus, yeah, he was hot, tall, broad shoulders, jawline that could seriously cut glass. The kind of guy who probably never had to try to get dates. But what really kept me up at night wasn't his looks. It was the way he'd started looking at me. Like, it wasn't super obvious or anything, but I could totally feel it. His eyes would linger a bit too long when we talked, his jokes got more flirty, and then there were nights like this one where we'd both just lie there, and I swear I could feel his presence across the room like it was a physical thing. I rolled over to face the wall, trying to get my head straight. I'd always been into girls, never even thought about guys before. So why was I lying here obsessing over my roommate? Why did my heart go crazy whenever he got close? None of it made any sense. Just when I was trying to convince myself I was imagining things, I heard his sheets rustle and footsteps coming my way. My heart practically jumped into my throat. Was he just going to the bathroom? Getting water? I didn't dare look. "Can't sleep?" he asked super quietly, and I swear his voice sent electricity through my whole body. I was like, frozen, still facing the wall, totally unsure what to do. My mouth went dry, and my brain was going a million miles an hour. Was this weird? Why was he talking to me in the middle of the night? No, not really, I managed to whisper back. Then there was this super intense silence. I could feel him watching me, and I had to force myself to stay still, keep breathing normally. Maybe if I acted sleepy enough, this weird moment would just pass? But nope. Instead of going back to bed, I heard him walk closer, and next thing I knew, he was sitting on the edge of my bed. My heart was going crazy, and the tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. This definitely wasn't normal roommate behavior. I snuck a peek at him from the corner of my eye. He was sitting way too close, looking super chill but with this intense look in his eyes that I couldn't read. "You've been acting kind of weird lately," Jake said, trying to sound casual, but there was definitely something else in his voice. "Everything okay?" I had no idea how to respond. Like, how do you explain to your straight roommate that you've been having these confusing thoughts about them? That you don't know how to make it stop? So I did what anyone would do, totally chickened out. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied, trying to smile like everything was normal. "Just work stuff, you know?" Jake wasn't buying it. He kept looking at me like he was trying to read my mind or something. For a second I thought he might push it, but he just nodded and leaned back. "Yeah, I get that," he said softly. "Work's been rough on me too." Another silence fell between us, but this one felt different. The tension in the air was like buzzing. I glanced at him again, and this time he was staring right at me, making my pulse go crazy. "Look," Jake suddenly said, breaking the silence. "I'm just gonna say it, all right? I've been getting this vibe from you lately, like something's different between us." My heart skipped a beat. There it was, the thing we'd been dancing around. I tried to deny it, but the words wouldn't come out. Because yeah, he was right. Something had definitely changed. Jake moved closer, his hand brushing against mine, sending shivers down my spine. "You feel it too, don't you?" he whispered, his voice all low and rough. My brain was screaming that this was wrong, that I needed to stop whatever was happening. But my body had other ideas. I don't know what this is, I admitted super quietly. But yeah, I feel it. Jake's eyes got darker, and for a second I thought he might back off, but he stayed right where he was. The tension between us was getting ridiculous. I could feel my pulse racing, my skin tingling like crazy. You know, Jake said quietly, his voice rough, I've been thinking about this for a while now. I couldn't believe he was being so direct about it. Like we'd been avoiding this for weeks, and now here he was, just putting it all out there. I had no idea how to handle it. My whole life I'd been straight, never questioned it, dated girls, did all the normal straight guy stuff. But now, everything felt upside down. Jake watched me super intensely, and I could barely breathe. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, but my throat was totally dry, and my emotions were all over the place. He moved even closer, our knees almost touching, and my heart went nuts. I don't know what this is, he whispered, but I can't stop thinking about it, about you. His words hit me like a truck. He was being so honest, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that. But I couldn't deny how my body was reacting to him, how my pulse went crazy whenever he was near. I've never, thought about guys like that. I stammered, totally unsure where I was going with this. Jake's lips curved into this little smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Neither did I, he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. But this, whatever this is, it's real. You feel it too, right? Couldn't lie anymore. I nodded slowly, meeting his eyes, and watched relief wash over his face. It was like he'd been holding his breath, waiting for me to confirm he wasn't alone in this. And now that I had, the tension between us was absolutely insane. He scooted closer, his knee bumping mine, and I had to take a deep breath to chill out. Man, I'm so lost here, I admitted, barely above a whisper. Like, this is kind of weird, right? Jake let out this little laugh, but his eyes were super serious. Yeah, it's weird, he agreed. But hey, weird doesn't mean bad, you know? But I was freaking out inside. This whole thing felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong step and boom, I'm done for. But at the same time, I couldn't fight how my body just reacted whenever he was around. It was like this crazy magnetic pull. Even though my brain was screaming, no way, we just sat there for a hot minute, the silence so thick you could cut it with a knife. I could feel him watching me, and the tension was getting ridiculous. Then out of nowhere, Jake just went for it, leaned right in. My heart was doing backflips, and for a split second I thought about bailing. But before I could chicken out, his lips were on mine. Super gentle at first, like he was testing the waters. Just a quick kiss, but holy cow, my heart was racing like I just run a marathon. I just sat there like a deer in headlights, totally lost about what to do next. Jake pulled back, looking all worried. I probably shouldn't have done that, he mumbled, sounding all guilty. But instead of feeling relieved, I was actually disappointed? Like, what's up with that? I couldn't figure out why, but I didn't want him to stop. No, I blurted out, surprising myself. It's cool. Jake's eyes got all wide, like he wasn't expecting that at all. We just stared at each other for what felt like forever, the air between us electric. Then before I could overthink it, I dove back in. This time, way different. No hesitation, just pure feeling, all that built-up tension finally breaking loose. My heart was going crazy as we kissed, my mind spinning like a top. This wasn't supposed to be happening. This wasn't me, but right then, couldn't care less. Jake's hand found its way to my neck, pulling me closer, and suddenly my body had a mind of its own. I could feel how warm he was, his breath on my face, and everything just felt so intense. But just like that, it was over. Jake pulled back, both of us breathing hard, and I could see he was just as confused as I was. I tried to say something, anything, but the words just wouldn't come out. Everything had changed in like 5 minutes flat. Jake ran his fingers through his hair, looking away for a sec before turning back to me. Look, he said super quietly, we don't have to figure this all out right now. But we can't just pretend it didn't happen. I nodded, my heart still doing gymnastics. He was right. This wasn't something we could just sweep under the rug. But I had no clue what came next. "We'll figure it out," Jake said, like he could read my mind. Together. I wanted to believe him, like really wanted to believe we could sort this out without everything blowing up in our faces. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be simple. Nothing about this was simple. Jake got up, giving me this little smile that made my stomach do flips. "One step at a time, okay?" I managed to nod, my throat all tight. "Yeah, one step at a time." But even as I said it, I knew this was just the beginning of something huge, something I wasn't sure I was ready for. As Jake headed back to his bed, the room felt tiny, like the walls were closing in. I flopped back down, staring at the ceiling, but sleep? Yeah, that wasn't happening. My brain was way too busy replaying everything that just went down, and I knew things would never be the same. The next few days were straight up bizarre. Nothing felt normal anymore. Every time Jake and I were in the same room, there was this energy. We tried playing it cool, acting like we were still just roomies. But who were we kidding? We'd crossed a line, and there was no taking it back. That kiss haunted me for days. We didn't talk about it, but it was always there, like this ghost hanging between us. I couldn't stop thinking about how it felt, how my heart had gone nuts, how everything had felt so wrong but so right at the same time. But we both knew it wasn't over. The tension was still there, just waiting to explode again. Then it happened. We were chilling one night after watching some movie, both a little buzzed from a few beers. The TV was just background noise now, throwing weird shadows on the walls. Jake was right there with me, and the way he was looking at me, different, more intense. My stomach was doing somersaults, and I tried to play it cool, but man, it was impossible. "Still thinking about the other night?" Jake asked out of nowhere. "Yeah," I whispered back, my voice all shaky. "Been on my mind." "Same here," he said quietly. "Hard not to, you know? With everything that's been building up." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I couldn't even talk. Everything felt so heavy, so intense. It was like we were standing on the edge of something huge, and I knew if I jumped, there'd be no going back. A shiver ran down my spine as I found myself leaning in, like some invisible force was pulling me toward him. The space between us got smaller and smaller, the air thick with tension. My pulse was racing, and my brain was screaming at me to stop, but I couldn't. Jake reached out, his fingers barely touching my arm. But even that tiny contact sent electricity through me. I could barely breathe as I looked at him, my head spinning. This was wrong. I knew it was wrong. But the way he was looking at me, the way his touch made me feel, "I want this too," I whispered, the words just tumbling out. Jake's eyes got dark, and before I knew what was happening, he was right there, his hands sliding up my arm to my neck. Then he was kissing me, and holy cow, this was nothing like last time. This was hungry, desperate, like all that tension finally snapped. I didn't even think about it. I just kissed him back, grabbing his shirt to pull him closer, and then we were just gone, lost in the moment, everything else fading away. It was intense, overwhelming, like being caught in a storm. We couldn't get close enough, couldn't stop touching, and the couch felt way too small. Next thing I knew, we were stumbling to my room, barely breaking apart. The world just a blur of sensation and heat as we fell onto the bed, clothes disappearing somewhere along the way. When it was over, we just lay there, tangled up together, breathing hard. Part of me knew I should be freaking out about what we'd just done, but I couldn't, not with Jake still right there, his warmth against me, his touch still tingling on my skin. So the next morning, total mind-blown vibes. Sun was doing its thing through the blinds, making these crazy patterns on the bed. Jake was right there next to me, arm just chilling on my waist, looking super peaceful while he slept. Meanwhile, my brain, total chaos mode. I'm lying there, staring at the ceiling like it's gonna give me answers, trying to wrap my head around what went down last night. Part of me was like, no way, this has gotta be a dream. But Jake's warmth and everything else? Yeah, definitely real. And I'm freaking out because this wasn't part of the plan, you know? Like, Catching feelings for your roommate? Not exactly on my to-do list. I did that whole ninja move thing, super carefully sliding out from under his arm, trying not to wake him up. The morning air hit me and I got goosebumps, but honestly, it wasn't just the cold. It was more like, holy cow, what did we just do? Kinda shivers. Grabbed some sweats and snuck out to the kitchen, feeling like my legs were made of jelly. Everything felt weird, like even the normal morning stuff. Fridge humming, cars outside, creaky floor, felt extra loud in my head. I'm just standing there, running my hands through my hair like it'll somehow help me figure life out. Then boom, Jake shows up, looking all bedhead cute but with this expression I couldn't read. We're both just standing there like awkward penguins until he drops a soft, "Hey," with his morning voice. Asks if I'm okay. And I'm nodding like a bobblehead even though I'm so not sure. The tension, you could cut it with a knife. Jake tries to bring up last night but kinda trails off, and I can tell he's just as confused as I am. We're both doing this dance around the elephant in the room, waiting for the other person to make the first move. Then Jake hits me with this bombshell. Tells me he doesn't regret it. Like what? My brain's doing backflips trying to process that. Everything about last night was totally spontaneous, and here he is being all chill about it? I spill my guts. Tell him I'm lost about what this even is. And Jake? He's all same, but it felt right. I wanted to argue, but deep down, yeah, he had a point. This thing between us has been cooking for a while, we just didn't want to admit it. He gets closer, and suddenly I'm not freaking out as much. Something about him just makes everything feel okay? He's all, we'll figure it out. And no pressure to have everything sorted right now. And I'm like, please let this work out. We end up having coffee and just talking, like really talking. And it's weirdly normal, but also not normal at all. There's this whole new vibe between us that we can't ignore. Later, reality starts creeping in like, what does this mean for everything? Our friendship? Living together? But we're both like, let's just roll with it for now. And honestly, that works. The next few weeks are this weird mix of, is this really happening? And, hey, this could actually work. We're taking it super slow, not trying to label everything. And slowly but surely, I'm freaking out less and less. Sometimes I still get in my head about it, but Jake's always there being all steady and reassuring. And in those quiet moments when it's just us, I'm starting to think maybe this whole thing isn't about fitting into some box or having all the answers. Maybe it's just about finding something real in all this chaos. We've got our own little groove now, and yeah, it's not perfect, but it feels right. For the first time in forever, I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be. Sitting here now, I'm realizing some things don't need explaining. We've crossed this line, and you know what? Maybe that's exactly how it was supposed to go down. If this story touched your heart or made you feel something special, I'd love for you to be part of our storytelling community. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. It's where we share more authentic, heartfelt stories like this one that challenge our perspectives and remind us that love comes in many unexpected forms. Every subscription helps us continue creating content that celebrates real human connections and the beautiful complexity of relationships. Join us on this journey of discovery, understanding, and acceptance. Together, we can create a space where every story matters and every voice is heard. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being open to stories that push boundaries and touch hearts. See you in the next video.